Hi everyone. I want to start this week by sharing something. I was out in the classrooms this week and I actually happened to go into a third grade room where students were actually creating towers, and they were supposed to be collaborating together and talking about how they were going to work together to create a tower. And one thing I noticed, there were a couple of kids that they were arguing over whose design was the best. Mine is, I like this or I like that. And so they were having a little argument, and so the teacher went over and she started to talk to them about how do they start setting shared expectations around the tower or the project that they're working on. And I think what I'd like to say is that's an example of how we use responsive classroom philosophy here at the school. So our teachers use these expectations like, how do you set expectations for yourself in terms of working together so that you're collaborating, you're communicating positively, and you're problem solving together. So that's responsive classroom is this philosophy, and we spend a lot of time, and really we spend hours actually delivering in-service for our teachers in order to do that effectively. And so what the students did at that time was we came back, and actually they had created expectations about how they were going to listen carefully to each other, and they were going to actually listen and take a couple ideas from each of the things that they suggested so that they were working together and, like I said, collaboratively in establishing what that tower was going to look like. So it was really effective in giving them the responsibility of going back and creating those expectations on their own. So when you think about at home, how do you do that, or how could you lean into that same thing? So maybe it's like, how do you co-create maybe some household expectations around the things that happen in your home? So maybe you could think about dinner cleanup. So maybe you have a helper, maybe you don't, but how do you, what is your expectation for what happens after dinner is over or after breakfast is over? Is it that the kids pick up the dishes and take them back to the kitchen and clean them off, or do they just walk away from the table? So what expectation do you want that to be? At my house, the expectation is that we pick up our dishes, we take them out, we deliver them back to the kitchen. We actually have a helper, so we say thank you to the helper for making the dinner, and we leave them there. So it isn't her expectation that she has to do that. So think about that and how you make sort of those expectations around some of those household things. Another one might be screen time, about how do you sit down with your kids and actually talk about what is the timeline for, or what is the time limit for that they're going to be on the screen. What time does that take place? Does it take place right after school or after dinner, or when might that take place? So that'd be a good thing to talk about. Another example of how you could support us with that work is around how do you communicate sincerely with your child in terms of making sure that they understand how to build positive relationships with the others around them. So communicating things like how you're feeling when they don't clean up their room, and doing that in a really respectful way. So I'm feeling uncomfortable about the way your room looks today, and I'd really like you to pick your things up. Or, I'm really happy about the way your room looks. You've really done a great job of making it look put together, and you're putting your things away. That really builds positive relationships in terms of students knowing how they should communicate with the students that they work with or the teachers that they work with. So those I statements about, I like when you did this, I'm frustrated when you did this, you using them as adult helps our students understand how they can use them as well. Another one is sometimes at school we ask our kids to take a break. We know that they're frustrated or they're getting a little bit wore out, and so how do we say, why don't you take a break and go sit down, or just have a minute by yourself, or go get a drink and come back? And how do you do that as an adult as well? So if you're frustrated with something, and you might say to your children, you know what, I'm frustrated right now over the conversation we're having. I'm just going to walk away, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back and talk about this. You modeling that for your children sends a strong message to them that it's okay, that when you're upset, you can keep it under control, but you can walk away and then come back and have a more, comfortable conversation that works well for you. So setting shared expectations, listening to others, really sets a tone for how our kids collaborate, communicate, and then problem solve together. So hopefully those are some hints that you can take away and help us with how we use the responsive classroom philosophy. Thank you, everybody.